So point number 3 is the type of tree. This is where my early research into pruning kind of got technical and complicated. It simplified, I guess, over the years, and where I came to is that pretty much there's kind of 2 primary kinds. One is trees that fruit on new wood, and other is trees that fruit on old wood. And what that means for us, new wood would be the growth that happened. So we're in winter now, so the growth that happened last year in spring and summer, so the new growth, that will produce fruit next year, so the following year, and only on that new wood. Whereas the old wood trees, it's the opposite. They'll grow in the spring and the summer, but they won't produce fruit on that new growth. They'll produce fruit on the old growth. I can sense it's sounding complicated even as I'm talking, but look, I'll show you what I mean, because it's fairly simple on the trees to see. What we have here is our prune from last year, and you can see the difference in colour. So that's the old branch, and then these kind of reddy ones here, these are all new. So for a peach that fruits on new wood, that means that these all grew last year, right? And all of these little buds that you can see, hopefully, they will produce flowers and then fruit. It won't fruit on the old wood, only on the new wood. So when we're cutting, always then we'll try and leave some of that, so long as it fits in with the size and the shape first. All right, so here's an example then of old wood, and probably looks pretty similar from the initial look. So here's a prune from last year. This is a Fuji apple, and this different coloured wood up here is the wood that grew last year. So I guess on the surface of it, it looks pretty similar to the peach that I've just showed you. The only difference is that this will produce leaves but no flowers and no fruit for probably a couple of years. All the flowers and fruit will happen elsewhere on the tree. So just a little bit further, so there's the cut I just showed you, a little bit further down the branch, so then on the older wood, you've got these knobby little bits, and they'll be, more than likely, they'll be fruit buds, and that's where the flowers and subsequently the fruit is going to develop. So that's the big difference, is that the fruit then on the apple tree develops on the older wood. The thing is, don't get concerned about old wood, new wood, all that stuff. There's a reason why it's tip number 3, and that's because the size and the shape, way more important. By the time you've pruned it to the right height, you've got the shape right, then what's left is, sure, if you've got the knowledge of whether you're dealing with old wood or new wood fruit tree, then that can help kind of shape your decisions in terms of which branches maybe you cut or don't cut. But honestly, size and the shape first. The rest is knowledge, and it's good to know, but don't get caught up on it at all. What? Is that right? Did someone just say, but what? What if I cut off too much? What if? You will, probably. I did. You'll make mistakes, of course you will. But I can tell you that these trees are pretty damn forgiving. And you don't believe me? Well, I am sitting right now surrounded by the growth on a clingstone peach tree that a few years ago I cut to, I don't know, a foot off the ground with the chainsaw, because it had to go. Damn thing gets leaf curled no matter what we try. The fruit is small, terrible that it comes on at a bad time too. It's very early in the season for us, and there's other things happening. For a whole heap of reasons, it just had to go. So fair enough, chopped it out with the chainsaw. I got busy and I didn't get back to dig the stump out. And then the summer came And it grew. What? And then, because now we now know that a peach fruits on new wood, so that growth, it didn't get fruit, you know, in those months after I cut it down. That'd be crazy. But the next year, it fruited. What? With the same crappy little terrible fruit and gnarled, leaf curl leaves, and all the same problems were still there. But you can see with the growth around, you can see it's actually just budding up too. It's getting ready to go again. It's still going to go, but this is the example of, this is a chainsaw, whoosh, right to the ground, like everything had gone. So, you can, I'm sure, you can cause trouble, but honestly, I think I certainly worry way too much about the what ifs, and I stand by the fact that, you make more issues by not pruning than you do by just having a go. So the last thing, point number 4, is hygiene. Unlike in the kitchen where I was a total hygiene Nazi, I must confess in the garden my knowledge just isn't as strong, and I do what I can. And there's just a few things that I do when I'm pruning. I make sure I always do. I'm sure there's plenty more things that should be done, but anyhow, first thing is that I always have methylated spirits to wipe down my secateurs or loppers or whatever I'm using between trees. So I have read, actually, I've seen some things that say you should do it between cuts. It just takes too long, and I don't do that. But I do absolutely do it between trees so that you're not transferring any, evil from one tree onto the next. So yeah, methylated spirits, I guess there's all sorts of different alcohols or stuff you could use. Not a big fan of bleach, particularly in the garden. So I use methylated spirits. Second thing is I make sure that my tools are really sharp. So I use just a kitchen whetstone like I would use to sharpen my chef's knives, and I use those to sharpen my secateurs and any kind of cutting things that here, so that the cuts are clean and sharp. Nothing worse than a mangled, mashed up cut. You're really asking for disease, trouble. Some trees are more susceptible than others too. I think apricot trees can be pretty kind of finicky, but again, I don't really know all the vagaries of the different trees, so I just make sure my tools are always sharp. The third thing is the angle of the cut. So I try to always make sure that the angle of cuts are vertical, and that way any water or moisture isn't going to sit on a flat surface and perhaps get in and cause trouble. If the cuts are vertical, then any water or moisture is going to kind of fall off them, and they'll stay drier, and I think that's just best practice. I hope that's helpful. It certainly that's what made the most sense to me. Now that there's lots of stuff I haven't covered, we've got berries here, which is a world on its own. They kind of follow the same principles in a way, but there's different things we do for the berries, which we're due to prune them very soon. So I'll probably cover those shortly. We've got ornamental grapes. We had real grapes, but not anymore. But anyhow, look, that's it for now. I'll catch you next time.